Good evening and welcome to the June 12, 2023 meeting of the Akron Public School Board. Roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Present.
Dr. Hall. Ms. Jackson.
Present.
Mr. Perry.
I am here.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
Dr. Molnar.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Mr. Alexander, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you can stand, please do so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Next on the agenda is Community and School Reflections. Any takers? Mr. Perry.
Sure. So a couple things. I had a chance to go, I'm sure we all did over the last couple of weeks, to graduations. And I spoke at Garfield's about a week and a half ago at John S. Knight Center. And I want to say congratulations to all 128 graduates of that class, the inaugural class of the new building, obviously. They were very happy, had a lot of good attendance. Superintendent was there, obviously, and she spoke as well. But congratulations to all the Garfield students this year. The second thing is a bit personal. As you all know, my two boys grew up and went through Resnick for the last handful of years. And my youngest is now leaving Resnick. He's going to our STEM middle next year. But I wanted to say thank you to all the Resnick teachers that they went through the last 5 or 6 years. Ms. Hathaway, Ms. Albanese, Ms. Bess Wetherick, Ms. Ulrich, Ms. Panko, Mr. Rocco. All the teachers they had were just great. And we're definitely going to miss Resnick. And I want to send a shout out to their new interim principal, Ms. Angelo, who will be there starting next year. Ms. Cord did a great job when the time that she was there. So thank you, Resnick. From the Perry family, we thank all of you for all you did for our boys all these years. And we'll definitely miss Resnick for sure. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Anyone else?
Do you have Dr. Molnar? Oh, you don't have any? Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Molnar.
Yes, I also got to attend 2 graduation ceremonies, and it was very exciting for me because this was my first time attending graduation ceremonies as a board member and shaking hundreds of hands in a row. Twice in 1 week, and it was so great just meeting so many students, and most of all hearing all of the families, hearing the family support. We had so many cheerleaders there, and lots of fan clubs for students. I even heard some cowbells, so it was very exciting. Also, I had the chance today to visit a couple of summer camps. So that was exciting too. The year is ending, but the summer is just beginning. So the chess camp at STEM today, my son started that, and he came back skipping. So I think that's a very good thing.
Thank you, Dr. Molnar. Anyone else? Ms. Jackson?
I'm trying to make sure everyone goes.
Why is that?
Thank you. Since the last board meeting, I had the honor to attend the graduation at Bookdale CLC. It was a wonderful and inspiring event. It was very energetic, and millions of dollars. Those students, that class received millions of dollars in academic and athletic scholarships, and I think that's something that should be highlighted and is a wonderful thing when we think about the community and a lot of things that a lot of people have a perception, I think, of Bookdale, and so I think it's very important that we highlight the fact that great things are happening at 1040. Many students have 4-year full ride scholarships for both academics and athletics. And so I just want to say kudos to those families, to the community. I am a Garfield Ram, as you all know. However, the Bookdale Griffs, they will not let it go. So in the crowd, you've seen generations, and when they started to sing your alma mater, it was like a whole choir, like everyone in the place was singing. Superintendent was there, Mary Outley, she was there, and she, of course, there she goes. You can be 80 years old. If you attended Bookdale, they are there in full force, and they were singing. And I thought that was just great to feel that community support. And I was very proud of our very own DeEssence Jackson, who is a student board member. DeEssence was a valedictorian. She received the Womanhood Award. She also is going with heavy scholarships on to college. And one of the things that I thought was great about DeEssence, and for the previous board members who saw fit to even think to have a student board member, I think that was Lisa Mansfield and Patrick Bravo played a significant role with that. I think that was great foresight, because it really is cultivating leaders, and they are connected with not only their school community, but the greater community that helps supports them. And the reason why I want to say that is because DeEssence, she definitely shouted out Miss Dreama Whitfield, and how Miss Whitfield has played a major role in her life and in her success. And so I just thought I would share that with you all, because it was just my pleasure to be in the a part of it. I did speak there as well, but just to be in the audience, I felt like they were family, and that's a great feeling to have. Additionally, Jason, who was the Bailey brand, he came and he presented to us as part of the restaurant program at Bookdale. He talked to us, but he also was a student that I highlighted about having his own brand, and it was just good to see him walk and the excitement in his face, and so that was a great event. I also attended the Monarch celebration at Mason Park CLC. Miss Carter was there, Angela Carter was there, a lot of community was present, and it was just great. And I met a really wonderful second grade teacher, and her name escapes me. I know her husband is connected with the GAR Foundation in some capacity, but what was interesting, does anyone know who I'm talking about? At Mason Park. She was a second grade teacher, dark hair. It might have been. Okay, no, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure she said her husband does something with the GAR Foundation at North High School. It could have been. But anyway, she was awesome. She was second grade, and I didn't know she was a teacher, and I was just asking questions, and she was so informative about everything. I like when people have knowledge and information when you ask them questions, especially when it's a teacher and they don't give you answers. Like, I'm not sure, I don't know, because I just want them to be sure. And she told me about everything that was taking place, because I said, the Monarch celebration, are they going to let out the Monarch butterflies and what? And so she gave me a lot of information, but it was a great experience. The kids seemed to be having a wonderful time, as well as the parents. So it was a great community event. Miss Carter was having a great time. She's always happy and bubbly, so that was great. I also had the opportunity to visit Helen Arnold. And it was a great time I just figured I might as well swing by because I was coming from Mason Park. And I got to speak with the principal, LaMonica Davis, Miss Wilkerson, and other team members who were excited about the article in the Akron Beacon Journal concerning the school, showing that they are accomplishing goals and that they are educators who truly believe all children can learn, and that putting in the work shows this, because now the data begins to tell the story. And so they were very grateful for that article, as I was grateful, because I think it highlighted and showed a great perception of what's happening at Helen Arnold. And I know the teachers are proud, and they're even more kind of forward to greatness, right? It was like another charge to keep it going. So we want to thank the writer of the article, the teachers, and just the community and everyone who has supported those efforts. I know, Jan. So thank you for that article, because you did a wonderful job with that. Because it's good to be encouraged, because a lot of times it's in vain, right? Some people feel like they're doing it in vain. So when you're highlighted and the positive is seen, because so much emphasis can be put on the negative. So thank you for that article from the staff, from me. Also visited Miss W's first grade class, and I came by to deliver donuts to them as I promised. And the last time I visited, many of them wanted to hold me to the standard because I brought Miss Wilkerson's kids donuts. And so they said, you're the first grade, can we get donuts? And I said, okay, finish your testing and I'll come back. So I brought them donuts. And what was so awesome about Miss W's class, they were out on the playground. And so I'm like, hey, I have your donuts. And one kid, just completely unprovoked, came up to me and said, you know why I love school? And I said, no, why you love school? So I'm like, oh, this would be great to go on my page. Let me tape this kid. I'm glad he didn't say nothing crazy. Let me tape this kid. And he said, because I love my teacher. My teacher is so great. So then another kid said it, and it was very genuine. And I thought that those are the wonderful moments that you appreciate seeing when you visit schools. I also attended a ceremony, and Superintendent, you can clean me up in this if I mix it up. I attended the ceremony or program at the Akron Alternative Academy, and it was involving the staff's participation in receiving their certification as a trauma-skilled school. Oh, Tekka, you were there. So Tekka, help me out because I try to do all this from memory for receiving their certification as a trauma-skilled school. And I believe they are the first school in the state of Ohio to receive such certification. And so I think that is something that's to be commended. It was truly a pleasure to see and hear the passion of these educators and their willingness to hold students accountable while also lifting them up with encouragement and the belief that they are able to achieve despite challenges that they have faced. The principal, Janelle Rasnick, did I say her? Who was? Oh, Green was awesome. That's the principal. So who is Rasnick? Rasnick? The assistant principal. Okay, so they worked on a team. I had Green here too because she got me the T-shirt. They were greatly supported by the staff, and I think they aided over 70 students that might have not traditionally graduated in graduating. And so that's something that we all can be proud of because 70 kids that matriculated and are able to take the next step in life, it matters. And so I just want to highlight the work and the efforts of all of those there at Akron Alternative Academy. And Rebecca Green-Pallotta, again, I want to thank her for my shirt. And they all were wearing shirts that said, "Accountability is love." And I really appreciate that because I saw them wearing it, and I'm like, yes, I believe that. You have to hold people accountable, and she made sure that I had a shirt before I left. So, again, I want to give a shout-out to Akron Alternative Academy for those 7 students that graduated, for their efforts and all that they're doing. What a great team. It was a great energy, a great spirit. You can tell that they were in one accord, and I was just happy to have been in attendance. Also, I had the pleasure to meet with Michelle Campbell, the executive director of the LeBron James Foundation. And she was speaking to me and told me that they had about 20 kids, 330 ambassadors. That's part of the I Promise family, high school students, to travel to Nike in Beaverton, Oregon, to attend a program that Nike is having about innovation in different areas that you can work in. Nike is almost like a mentoring program, and I think that is really awesome for our children to have such experience. We're doing great things in this district with our college and careers and just the different opportunities that the various schools offer. Also, the 7th and 8th graders at I Promise designed an I Promise shoe and swim line. So I thought that is something cool. She was talking to me about that. And lastly, I attended 330 Sneak Geeks at House 330, which is an event hosted by a young entrepreneur who happens to also be my daughter. And there were so many entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs from the area. The Bailey brand was there from Bookto High School. Big 8 from Bookto High School, which is another brand, was there. Who was Mrs. Grimes from Bookto was there, and Miss Wagner. Miss Wagner from Bookto, she was there supporting students. Demi Barnes, she graduated from Elliott High School. In this recent class, she was there selling things. So we have kids doing great things. And just shout out to House 330 for affording a space and an opportunity for young people to do things in a safe environment. Akron Police Department. It was just a wonderful event. So now that concludes my reflections for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I think we have a whole lot that we should be proud of in this district. So, is there anyone else that has any reflections? Okay. So also, since we last met, I also had the opportunity to visit Mason's Monarch celebration. You guys didn't see me because I was sitting up on the hill in the shade. It was a really hot day. I saw all of you guys. But it was a great event. A lot of families were out. They had a live reggae band. They gave away free slushies. They gave away free books. I was babysitting that day. I was Grammy, so I had my granddaughter with me, and she just loves it. She wants to go to that school. But it was a really great event, and it took place in their outdoor classroom, which is graciously funded by the GAR Foundation. And so I'm told that they received another grant to sustain that outdoor classroom. So that's really, really good news. And congratulations to Ms. Coaches and the whole team over there at Mason CLC. Also, I had the opportunity to attend several graduations. When you're running for school board, you don't really think about that part of things, but it is one of my most favorite things because it makes almost all of this that we experience worth it when you see that end game. And so Akron Alternative Academy, I was able to speak there at their graduation, and they also combined their graduation with APS Online. We had our very first graduating class from APS Online, and it was held at Firestone High School. It was a busy night because I think Booktel and Firestone both had their graduations, but that auditorium was packed. It's so beautiful. I always get tearful because you see how proud these families are. And not just the families, the whole village, the teachers, everyone who works in those buildings that help those students get to that point. We often hear negativity, but obviously people show up and appreciate what APS has to offer. And so they packed the auditorium and showed out that evening, and congratulations to all of those young people. Also had the opportunity to attend and speak at East Community Learning Center's graduation. Again, a wonderful experience. What I love is just seeing the different personalities of each cluster. Everyone has their own little personal touch. And at East, they had little videos that showed a baby picture and a current picture of all the students and just their goals and who they admired and looked up to. So that was just really a great experience. And I also enjoy watching all those young ladies trying to walk in those heels. Oh my goodness. So that was nice to see. And so also, since I last had our meeting, was able to attend the Maple Valley Merchants Community Festival this past weekend. It was just really nice for that Ward 4 West Akron community to get out. I was able to hand out a lot of kindergarten information as well as our summer programming, so hopefully you'll get an influx of folks wanting to sign up for kindergarten and also our summer programming. And that concludes my community and school reflections. Okay, so moving on. Next on the agenda, we do have 2 requests to address the school board today. And so the first person is Miss Amy Kaiser, if she can make her way up. And as you're walking up, I'll read the little preamble. Participants will not be permitted to speak on matters related to vendors, business matters, formal complaints, grievances, specific students or student records, personnel matters, and potential or pending legal matters. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. The board will not respond, but will assign through the superintendent the appropriate person for follow-up. Thank you. Please feel free to proceed, Ms. Kaiser.
Good evening. My name, like you said, is, can you hear me? Amy Kaiser. I am a 4th grade teacher here in Akron, and I just closed out year 25 in my classroom. I come to you today to talk to you about therapy dogs, but before I do that, there are 4 different types of working dogs. You have a service animal or service dog. That would be 1 animal to 1 person. Usually it was something to do with medical, whether it is a service dog for diabetic alert or seizure response, something along those lines. You also have an ESA, which is an emotional support animal. That animal is just what it says. It's for emotional support. It's one-on-one again. The difference between those 2 is a service animal is permitted in any public place, any public outing, anywhere that my daughter goes, her dog goes as well. An ESA is not. You are kept at home, and you're there for emotional support. The other two are therapy dogs and a facility dog. A therapy dog is one dog to many people to different locations. A lot of training that goes into place with the therapy dog, and that also has to do with the facility dog. Your main difference is one dog, one location, and many people as well. So I'm coming to you this evening. Some of you know I've come to different people before since approximately 2020 with asking to really reconsider or to consider a therapy dog or facility dog for our schools. A lot of training that goes into a therapy dog. It's not a class pet. They go through obedience training, advanced obedience training, community good citizen, community canine, and then therapy dog training itself. They have to pass a 19-point test, and they have to receive a 100% on that test to be certified as a therapy dog. A lot of time goes in, hundreds of hours, along with thousands of dollars to train a dog or an animal to be a therapy dog. I have one at home. Her name is Zia, and some of you know that because I've approached some of you before on the sidelines here about her. She is certified through Bright and Beautiful Service Dog or Therapy Dog Training through Medina County's Best Paws Forward. So you might wonder where she's gone. She's been into nursing homes. She's been in colleges. She's been in the classrooms, not in Akron. She's been in gymnastics facilities. And while she's there, she comforts, she increases stress, she builds relationships, she decreases loneliness, she provides comfort in a time of need. And as a teacher at I Promise, I can't imagine the benefits we would have had with her the past few years of all the losses we've had. She boosts social awareness, and she soothes fears and regulates emotions. All of these which have to do with our SEL curriculum, which comes from state of Ohio, which all of us, I think, are very full of pride that we partake in that social emotional learning. Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, Columbus, Dayton, Stowe, Wadsworth, Tiffin, Newton Falls, Marietta, Mount Vernon, Norton, just to name a few, all have therapy or facility dogs within their district, within their classrooms. I have created a policy draft. I know that Akron is very interested in having a therapy dog policy. I can be contacted if you would like a copy of that at ACASER, apslearns.org. And if you're interested in anybody piloting the program, I'd be more than willing to do so in my classroom. So I want to thank you for my 3 minutes, and hopefully you can contact me or consider what I've said tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Next, we have Sarah Payne.
Hi, how are you? I spoke here once before. I held up a picture of my daughter's face that was bruised. Annabella attended Reimer from kindergarten to the 4th grade, the second point. It has come to my notice that during that time you have the 3rd grade reading guarantee. Annabella did not pass the state test for that. She actually has never passed a reading and literacy portion of the Ohio State testing, actually. She was passed on to the 4th grade without a meeting, without an IEP, without anything, even though she was placed on a monitoring plan. If that monitoring plan was any bit of effective, they would have found out that Annabella suffers from, she suffers from dyslexia. She stopped improving at the 2nd grade. I'm wondering how is it possible with all these things in place that a child could sit here since kindergarten minus the pandemic time, I'll give you that, but how she can sit there all this time and no one noticed that she was suffering from a learning disability. 3rd grade reading guaranteed, bypassed, no meeting with the school principal other than that incident we had, and there's report card pickup. It was noted that Annabella was distracted. At times, I took her to the doctor, had her put on medication, but guess what? It did no good because the child is dyslexic. So my concern is how many other kids have sat there during that time period that have just gone under the radar, and now here she's supposed to be in 5th grade. I'm not gonna obviously allow that. She has to be retained in the school district that she is now in to give her IEP and adequate time to work. Thank gosh there's new dyslexia laws in place that would can guide them into helping her. But my question is that acceptable for you guys to have kids sitting there all that time, going unnoticed of a learning disability, bypassing the 3rd grade reading guaranteed? Because, if I knew that she was struggling that bad, I would have done in my power at that moment like I am doing now for her. Maybe other parents aren't as proactive as I've been for her, but somebody needs to take a better look at some of these kids that went on to the 4th grade during that time period. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Payne. Okay, so moving on in our agenda, we have approval of the previous meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Perry and seconded by Mrs. McKittrick. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Mrs. Autry,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes, abstain.
Thank you, and the motion carries. Next is personnel recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
Prior to asking your approval, I would like to draw your attention to item 5.4, the retirement of Larry Bender, and also the retirement of Kathy McVeigh. I would like to share a little bit of background regarding both of these employees. Larry Bender is a graduate of Akron Garfield High School. After graduating from college, he was hired as a teacher for Akron Public Schools in September of 1988. Mr. Bender spent his first 11 years with the district as a classroom teacher. He then served as an assistant principal at Perkins Middle School, Reedinger Middle School, and Jennings CLC before being promoted to principal at Ritzman CLC July of 2006. He is retiring after 34 years with the Akron Public Schools as the principal of Higher CLC. Larry has been described as a no-nonsense kind of guy. He will do anything that is needed to help his scholars, whether it is in or outside of the classroom. He is respected by parents and colleagues. He is cooperative and caring. He models integrity, fairness, and ethical behavior on a daily basis. Mr. Bender is a true leader who inspires all with his vision of school success. He is a great asset to the district, and he has and always will be looking for opportunities to go the extra mile. So at this time, we would just like to congratulate Larry on his upcoming retirement. Kathy McVeigh is currently the Executive Director of Human Resources. Kathy has been employed by the district for almost 20 years. Prior to joining Akron Public Schools, she worked in private industry for over 25 years, first in the legal field and then human resources. In 2005, Kathy left Summa Health System and joined APS as the manager of the Benefits Department and Human Resources. In 2009, she was promoted to her current position of Executive Director. Kathy worked with her team to make positive changes in the Human Resources Department. Several years ago, she created our Recruitment and Retention Department and began focusing on the diversity of our district through the recruitment of minority staff. Her efforts included having staff attend job fairs both in and outside of Ohio, holding our own job fairs in the district, and working with several outside companies to support our recruitment efforts. Through the Cleveland Area Minority Educators Recruitment Association, the district received its first scholarship to provide educational opportunities for our employees. She also worked to create our Grow Your Own program, which provides educational and financial opportunities for current employees who wish to embark on new careers in the district. In collaboration with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the district created our employee resource groups, also known as ERGs, through which we have 4 separate groups. Kathy has been an instrumental team member for the district's union negotiations, and this past year in the creation of the district's 7th union for our safety and security employees. Kathy is known for treating all employees with fairness, dignity, and respect, and for her strong work ethic, honesty, and integrity. Her hard work and dedication to the district are greatly appreciated. We wish Kathy all the best as she embarks on this new chapter. Congratulations on your retirement, Kathy. At this time, Ms. Autry, I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the personnel recommendations?
I move to approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Jackson. Is there any discussion? I'd just like to say on behalf of the board, thank you for your longevity of service, Mrs. McVeigh, and also Mr. Bender. Roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Ms. Jackson,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
No on 6.6, 6.7, 6.8, 6.10, 6.11, 6.13, 6.14, 11.5, 11.9, and 15.2. Yes on the balance.
Dr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Mrs. Autry.
Yes. And the motion carries. Moving on, we are on the next item of business, approval of resolutions and motions in the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
It's been
Second.
moved by Mr. Alexander and seconded by Mr. Perry. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. I'd actually like to just acknowledge item 19.4, the Summit Education Initiative Grant. Thank you for that grant. It is going to provide an opportunity for us to build and align our relationships for school readiness between the district and preschools that feed into our kindergarten programs. So I'm looking forward to that work. Thank you, Summit Education Initiative. And then also item 19.5, where we received a donation from United Way of Summit and Medina County in the amount of $100,000, and that is for a program at Garfield CLC, and it's an incentive for attendance. Those students will get RAM cash. And so it's modeled actually after ECLC's program through their Key Bank program over there. So they will get incentives to have good attendance that they can use to get in games, to get different prizes. So I just wanted to acknowledge those two grants and thank you. Roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Ms. Jackson,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Mrs. Autry.
Yes. And the motion carries. Next, we will move on to business affairs. We'll entertain a motion to approve the business affairs recommendations.
I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in category 23.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Perry.
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Alexander. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Atkins.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Mrs. Autry,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Aye.
Thank you, and the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Report. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. This evening, I would like to have Dr. Thompson join us at the podium. We would like to go over some options for you regarding our LTOP and give the board an opportunity to revisit 3 of the options and have an opportunity to ask questions. And there also is an addition for your consideration involving our STEM high school. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Thompson at this time.
Ms. Autry, board, Ms. Outley, thank you for the opportunity to present. It's been, geez, at least 2 weeks since we presented, I think. I know you guys are all just fixated on LTOP, so here we go again. So I just wanted to, you all are receiving a copy of this PowerPoint, but you can see this is just important to note for the timeline that it takes to construct anything. So know that once a decision is made, there's 4 months of programming and design. There are an additional 4 months for design development. Construction documents take about 4 months to prepare. Then the bidding process begins, and then construction's about 21 months in totality. So that gives you a general idea of approximately how long it will take once the board makes a final decision and we initiate to move forward. So instead of numbers this time, to try and limit confusion, I put a name. So this one is Kenmore. So think of this as this option is choosing the development and build out of a Kenmore property in this option. First, I should say. So phase 1 includes the following, and these are consistent in both options: closure of Ott, Miller South, Firestone Park, Pfeiffer, Stewart, and Essex. That remains consistent. Relocate STEM High School in August of 2024, when we can no longer house the program at Central Howard, to either a site on UA's campus, which we're still exploring, or potentially relocate to Garfield CLC. And you'll notice the asterisk with retrofits. There are 2 different retrofit options that we'll take a look at tonight. Construct a new Kenmore, grades K through 8, open in fall of 26. This would be relocating Pfeiffer, grades K through 5, to Kenmore, and relocating the Performing Arts program, or Miller South, grades K through 8. That would be on a location on the site of the existing Kenmore High School. The decision's already been made, and we've begun the preparation to move 6th graders in the East Cluster to the East CLC Middle School. Open new preschool programs in CLC elementary buildings where space is available. That work would begin in 2024. And construct a new athletic complex in phases on the former Kent Middle School campus. That construction would begin in phases as revenue is available. We would be seeking business partners and outside funding to support this project. So there are a couple options on a STEM addition. The first one I'm going to show you is the most expensive option. It's $6.4 million estimated cost. And as you get a high view of the STEM addition, basically what's important to note from this option is that it, other than sharing of cafeteria and gym space, there is no sharing of any space in the building, but requires construction. And you can see it also moves out into what is a very limited athletic space at Garfield High School as it currently stands. The topography really only allows the expansion on that part of the property. So this is a price breakdown that you're looking at now, an estimate for that secluded area of Garfield High School. So it would be a school within a school concept, which is not unheard of or unique. What is a little bit unique about this is that there would be very little crossing, if any, with the exception of lunch or to a PE facility. The second option stays within our current budget, which is $2 million for retrofits. This is moving the program, and it requires some movement of some other programs or core classes, but is doable. So this is the shot of the second floor. You can, if I can pull your attention to the right of the page, you'd have a reprogrammed STEM school entrance, a separate entrance. They would be primarily isolated, but not fully isolated, but would be primarily isolated on the second floor of their programs. They would have further to travel, as you can see, through the building to reach the Performing Arts Center, for example, or the cafeteria or the gymnasium. But they're still fairly secluded, but it would be remiss to say that, I would be remiss to say that it's not, that it's totally isolated. So the impact of the financial impact of the Kenmore option, the deferred maintenance and closure is very important in this calculation of $2.2 million, which I still stand by as a fairly conservative number, but that number is really important that the deferred maintenance and the staffing reductions remain true, or it changes the outlook of the 5-year forecast, which I'll show you momentarily. So what is the cost for this project? $61 million includes demo. That builds a performing arts school and an elementary school attached by common areas in the center. The athletic complex, we're seeking additional funding, so there is no financial impact. The North Campus, which is on phase 2 of this, North High School, there's not a financial impact. That comes in phase 2. And then the retrofits for the STEM High School, assuming we choose the second option, the second floor option, is $2 million. So if the boards were to desire the first option, the $6.4 million option, obviously we'd have to add $4.4 million to the COPS deal in order to make that happen. So the total budget, understanding that it's the second floor option, is $63 million. That's a $35 million certificate of participation or loan. That's $13 million from ESSER 3 or general funds, $15 million in the LFI funds. Again, the asterisk by that is that requires cooperation and consent from the city. So the total funds available for this project are $63 million. The COPS deal is estimated to be $2,286,828. That's per year. Consider it, or think of it as your mortgage payment for 30 years. That's the commitment. The deferred maintenance and staffing reductions are $2.2 million. So the annual impact on the general fund is $56,828. So a lot of questions about, well, where did we come up with $61 million? So the abatement and demo of the current Kenmore High School is $3.5 million. The new elementary school is $21.7 million. The performing arts school is $29.8 million. The auditorium is $6 million for your total of $61 million on that project. Kenmore Phase 2 is construct a new 912 campus with an estimated completion date of August of 28. That would require seeking a 1.75 mil permanent improvement levy in May of 2024. Continue construction of a new athletic complex in phases, again, as we are able to generate that revenue, and we seek that from business partners. So the total impact of that option is $83.5 million for a new North High School, funded by the passage of a 1.75 mil PI levy. The funding would be completely COPS, $83.5 million. That payment would be $5,339,260 a year annually over 30 years. The PI levy would be a continuing levy, meaning it lasts as long or longer than the duration of the loan, would generate roughly $4.9 million per year, and leaving us upside down $439,260 per year. Cost for a new North High School is to demo the high school. Well, it's got everything listed on here, actually. The new site, you can see it's towards the bottom. The new site is $80 million for 1,100 students, and then $3.5 million for demo of North High School. So it would be, the new North High School would be built while the current North High School remains standing. And then that summer, when the transition would happen, is when the demo would happen. So what you're looking at right now is our current 5-year forecast. And let me bring your attention first to revenue surplus or deficit. You can see that although the administration has been working very hard to address that $6.5 million number, and will continue to do so, you can see that we begin deficit spending in 2024, all the way to 2027, a $56 million deficit spending. And our 5-year forecast goes red in fiscal year 2027 at $40,920,000. So how would this first project impact that? So with the Kenmore, assuming that we maintain the savings and the deferred maintenance and reductions in force, that's $2,230,000. That's a total savings of $8.9 million over the life of the forecast. Annual COPS payment at $2.2 million beginning in fiscal year 24 is a total cost of $9,147 or $312 over the life of the forecast. That's a net deficit of $227,000. And you can see the impact on the 5-year forecast over a 5-year forecast is fairly minimal, provided those cuts remain in place. So there are certainly impact on our scholars, which should be at the forefront of our decision making. Some of the pros of this is scholars will attend newer, updated schools. The East 6th graders will have the same experience as the rest of our 6th graders. It places an educational facility on the Kenmore campus. There are cons, however. These plans do not address House Bill 110 concerns and declining student enrollment. It has a negative financial impact. Places STEM High School in an existing building off the UA campus. Plan still requires redistricting of North students in the North cluster and may require additional busing, to name a few. North High School will require significant repairs, upgrades prior to being replaced. A second option is to move with North first. It basically takes the plan and flips North first, prioritizes North over Kenmore. Again, those are all the same. The closures remain consistent. The difference here is North High School's built first, completion in 2026. relocates the STEM high school, no change to the previous plan, either on UA's campus or at Garfield CLC. Sixth graders move, we open the preschool programs, and we construct the athletic facility. The reductions remain the same. The construction cost, of course, goes to $83.5 million. That includes the demo. The athletic complex and the retrofits for STEM remain the same. So the total budget is $85.5 million. The big difference is where the certificates of participation, that number lands or finds itself. This is $57.5 million. $13 million in ESSER or general funds, $15 million in LFI dollars. That's an $85.5 million project. The certificates of participation, again, the yearly payment is roughly $3.7 million. With the $2.2 million in reductions, we're upside down $1,470,828 per year. The second phase would build Kenmore, just exactly as it was on the first phase, but it's predicated on the passage of the the 1.75 PI levy, which means that would be a $61 million COPS deal. That's $3.9 million. $4.9 million in revenue produced by the PI levy leaves a revenue stream of $740,000 to move to other buildings. So the May forecast, again, is what you're looking at here. With the savings of $2.2 million in deferred maintenance, that's a total savings the same as before, $8.9 million. The difference is this COPS payment is higher, so it's $3.7 million for a total cost of $14,803,312 over the life of the forecast. The net effect on the 5-year forecast is a negative $5,883,312. If you tried to combine them and do them all at the same time, the impact on the 5-year forecast would be very detrimental, making it or putting the board squarely in a difficult position to decide how to move forward and how to prioritize. So some of those impact on those scholars. The scholars would, again, attend newer, more updated buildings. Same is true with our 6th graders. Addresses the need for a new facility on North Hill. The cons, again, we're not addressing House Bill 110 concerns or declining student enrollment. Has the negative financial impact. Does not address the desire to place a school on the Kenmore High School site. Plan still requires redistricting in the North Cluster. May require additional busing, and Miller South and Pfeiffer will require significant upgrades or repairs. Difficult spot. So what I did try to do was create a document. Perhaps it will help you in your decision making, but it lists the action steps. Important to note when you're reading through it is take a look at the date of completion. So if you drop down to the middle box, if your preference is to build Kenmore first, then you would mark yes, and it tells you that that building would be complete in August of 26 and where the funding stream would come from. If you want to construct North High School by August of 26, one has to give, one or the other. So it just kind of keeps you focused on, or may help keep you focused on the direction of where you need to go or where you hope to go. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes. Let me find my pages here. At the current Garfield High School, high school, where we're talking about possibly adding on for STEM, don't we currently already have room for STEM, which we already talked about, so we wouldn't have to, but when we look at the new construction, is that rolling over into the football space as well? On the plan, it looks like it is. So now you're interrupting the football team in their practice, which they didn't have a field from day one, and they should have had one. So that affects them there. But I think with the areas that we already have, we could probably move students in there. We're doing less construction, correct?
Correct.
It will be less expensive for us.
Yeah. There's no question that the STEM high school students can fit into the existing Garfield High School. What this shows you, if you want them to be completely isolated and never paths cross, it requires construction. But if you're okay with some crossing of students, then obviously the second floor option, the second option is your most economical option moving forward.
Let me ask this question too. With that construction, do we have to do that right away? Because we maybe have the kids intermingling to a certain extent for a little bit, but could we do that down the road and do that construction if we need to? Possibly gives us more time to see if we can get more revenue?
If we want to move the students out of where they currently are, as if it's an option. We're at the end of a lease. It's not really an option. We extended it once already. It would not be very difficult. It would be impossible to have this construction done on time for those kids to move into that additional space. So there would have to be some period of time where they would be intermingled just because construction wouldn't be completed.
And that's what I'm saying too, is to allow them to mingle for a while until we can have the funds to cut them off. I'm just asking that question. Would that be more cost effective for us as a board?
Yeah, there's no question that putting them on the second floor is the more cost effective move.
Right, because it allows us time as well to say, okay, we can get funds to go back and do the construction.
Perhaps.
So if we waited for a little bit, maybe we can have those funds and do that. My other question is, I know North High School, and I bit my tongue for a long time, it's been bleeding, to not say much about North because I don't want people saying I'm saying that because it's a school that I graduated from. But wouldn't it be wiser for us to build a new North High School first, because we're talking about safe, dry, and secured area of a school? Because those kids are looking at the building the way it is now. I would be afraid if something happens, then we would be liable, and I wouldn't want us to be liable, just like we were at the old Garfield and how it was falling apart. And if something could have happened, we would have been in some trouble. So wouldn't it be wiser for us probably to do North first, talk about Kenmore and those areas as we move along, let North be phase one. If we want to work on Kenmore, that could be phase two. With that, Miller South could possibly have some things done there with can we put maybe a boiler system in there to hold them there for a few more years to give us some time as well to keep them there before we have to move them out and move them to another place. So I'm just thinking of all these things in my mind. Would those things be right? Because to wait on the levy to have a school built like North, I don't think that's wise for us, because we don't pass the levy, then they never get a school. So then what do? We've spent what money we had, and now we're moving in a direction where we may not have a school for those kids up there in North Hill.
I think that's why we presented two options, so that you could have that discussion as a board and make the decision about what your priorities are and where you want to go, and also the information so that you know the financial impact of each.
Right.
If you were to say, well, which buildings are in worse condition, well, the answer is all of the above is the answer. Miller South is in bad condition. Pfeiffer's in bad condition. North High School is not in great condition. So we know we're going to have to make whatever the decision is, we know from the operations side of the house, the superintendent, we're going to have to shift resources into the other buildings to try to shore them up. The next major opportunity past a 1.75 mil or some millage for PI would be not until 2033, when the 0.25% income tax falls off, and that presents an opportunity at that point to generate some revenue for building expansion. But that's still 9.5 years away.
Right. Yeah, because I'm just thinking about all the things, and we're talking about phases. I think we probably should have looked at phases from day one and say, what are we going to do? phase one would be this, maybe phase two possibilities, then narrow them down to where we possibly could go, and from there, say, make our decision. And maybe it'll have us a little further ahead than where we're at right now, because I just see us, you know, going back to North, and was it 2028? That means 4 years, 5 years that we'd have to have that school open?
49.
9? Okay, so that's 9 years that school being open, and we're going to have to put more money in. So we're putting money into a school that we really shouldn't be putting money into if we go ahead and construct it, because that would be more of a priority, I would think, than maybe the others. And I know that we want to do something with Kenmore, and I'm in favor of that, but sometimes we have to look at timing, look at things that we need to do. Example is with our homes. There may be 2 or 3 things that are going on in our homes. We prioritize what needs to be 1, what needs to be 2, what needs to be 3, and so forth. That's what we probably need to do here to make sure that we're taking care of the kids first and making sure they're okay, and then we can move forward from there.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Is there any other questions or comments for Dr. Thompson? Go ahead, Mr.
Just for
Perry.
clarification purposes, you know, I do like the option of having the STEM high in the Garfield building. I've been to that building several times. Very nice building. And we can certainly decide whether to construct the new addition or whether to just do the second floor option. But you talked a lot about the co-mingling of the students. They still have their separate entrances, though, right?
That's correct.
And when we say co-mingling, it's just for the lunch and the gym time, or other times as well?
No, there would be mostly yes.
Okay.
But there would be some times, and the Garfield students would still have to access that floor that are not STEM students. Yeah, for the
science
to
lab, okay.
reach the science labs. So that's the co-mingling part.
Okay.
It's fairly minimal.
Sure. Is there a real concern there, though? I mean, they're all students, right? I mean,
I don't think there's a concern. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't think there's a concern administratively.
yeah.
The question would just be, ultimately the board's concern.
Sure, okay.
So the reason the $6.4 million option was presented was because the board had asked for what would it cost to completely isolate. So there's your answer.
Yeah, and it sounds to me, I mean, and partly to Mr. Alexander's point, you know, if we're doing the more economic option at Garfield, putting the STEM high on the second floor, that leaves us some money then to put into other projects like North High School, right? It would certainly
help,
Yeah,
because
it
that money's got to
help.
come from somewhere.
A little bit of something would help.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
No, there's no doubt.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Molnar?
I know in previous conversations we've discussed how schools don't age in typical building years. We have hundreds of students walking through the halls multiple times a day. So my first question is, for either of these options, at what point will these new buildings, you're on phase 1, I'm on phase 31. When will these buildings need repaired? And if we're taking out these 30-year loans, will we be repairing the buildings while we're paying for the new building?
I think that's very insightful. Our first CLCs were built in 2007. So start thinking about the age of some of these buildings. And we know we're going to start moving into roof issues, heating system issues, just general things that would happen, to Mr. Alexander's point, to your own house. Those type of repairs will definitely be coming. So yes, it is going to be challenging for the district moving forward, as we're going to have to start really putting strong consideration into increasing some of our building maintenance funding, because we're going to be taking on larger projects across the whole district, or else our brand new buildings, well, not brand new, but I'll call them newer, older the buildings that are starting to age a little bit but are still new, are going, if we don't keep them updated and repaired, then you know what happens if you let a leaky roof leak. The additional damage that causes. So certainly, I think it has to be on the forefront of your minds. It's not just about the situation we face now, but what do we face over the next 10 years? And that is going to include additional funding for repairs of existing CLCs.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So if there are none, I do want to thank you, Dr. Thompson, for accommodating us and presenting those many options and educating the community on what we have facing us. And I just wanted to, share with the board that, none of these decisions are going to be easy for us. One message that Dr. Hall did want me to share is that he's hoping that we can, make a decision, by our next board meeting. It's not going to get any easier the longer that we wait. I was happy to see today's options. Essentially, no matter which one we pick, we're going to have to do maintenance on the other building. And so I see it as the payment's going to be higher. If we do north first, then the payment's going to be higher. But I also wanted to say, I know there is a balance of being realistic and being optimistic. And I just can't help but think of all the folks who have filled this room over the last several months and all the graduations full of folks who appreciate and support this district. And at some point in time, and I know I've said it before, we have to continue to be our own best cheerleaders and advocate for our needs. And I feel like the more we educate people, the more support we're going to get. I know there's rumblings out there that we could never pass a levy, and I know that is a possibility. But at some point, we have to believe in ourselves. We have to be the ones who start that belief. And so I just wanted to share that with everyone and encourage you to continue to look things over and solicit questions from our constituents and reach out to Dr. Thompson as needed for any clarifying things that we need. But this board needs to be able to act and make some decisions moving forward. So I just wanted to share that much with everyone. And again, thank you, Dr. Thompson. Okay. You have your 330.
Earlier, when under our 16.1 personnel recommendations, I did want to bring attention to Diane Serdowski. Diane was raised in Seven Hills and graduated from Normandy High School. She earned her BA in education from Cleveland State University and was first and only in her family to graduate from college. She later earned a master's in special education from Baldwin Wallace. A dedicated educator for 44 years, she gifted her compassion and sharp wit to thousands of students and colleagues across several schools, including St. Monica's, Union Elementary, and East CLC. In June 2022, Diane retired from Akron Public Schools, where she worked as an intervention specialist at East CLC. She returned to work part-time as an intervention specialist in the fall of 2022 after being recruited for a position at Summit County Juvenile Detention Center. Unfortunately, Diane passed on May 23rd, 2023, and we know that her sarcasm and her sense of humor will be dearly missed by all that knew and loved her. And then on display is part of our Be Kind 330 is to share with you what happened at Mason CLC. Our very own Mrs. Kaler from Mason CLC and a fourth grade student, Alea, completed a stunning crocheted blanket for their beloved school secretary, Mrs. Poole. The beautiful colors and intricate designs of the blanket are truly a sight to behold. and a testament to their hard work and dedication of both Ms. Kaler and the student Alea. But that's not all. I have a little secret. Ms. Poole is no ordinary school secretary. In fact, she is a former APS student and now an integral part of Mason CLC. She was my 5th grade student. And then I had her again in 8th grade. So I was very excited to see that she is well loved at Mason CLC. So please join us in thanking Mrs. Kaler and Alea for spreading the Be Kind 330 message. This is truly sharing an example of the power of kindness that's happening in our school community. Thank you, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. And so next on the agenda is President's Report. And so I did share that message from Dr. Hall. I also just wanted to remind board members that this Thursday we have a meeting to review the applicants and select which ones we are going to be interviewing, which will take place the following Tuesday and Wednesday. And then before the final round of interviews, there will be a forum for our stakeholders to see the final candidates, and that will be led by our executive search team. And then our final round of interviews will be on Thursday, the 29th. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that. And that's all for President's Report. Next on the agenda is Treasurer's Report.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Moving on to committee reports, legal contracts, and board policy.
No report.
Thank you, Dr. Molnar. Finance and Capital Management Committee, that would be me, and that is also LTOP. Moving on, instructional policy and student achievement.
We do have a report. The committee met on June the 5th. All those who were present were Ms. Autry, Ms. Jackson, Ms. McKittrick, Dr. Caver, and Angela Carter. And it was a good discussion. It wasn't a long meeting, but it was good, and information was good there. Ms. Carter talked about a number of things. One, she started out with our elementary summer school, and she talked about the kids going to summer school, and the most important piece that she was talking about was our 3rd grade reading courses, and she put an emphasis that they want to make sure that all of our kids are at the right place they should be, that they would come to class, they would come to learn, and they have opportunity to take a test during the summer, and again, I think again is in the fall, if I'm not mistaken, to take this test to see where they're at. They want to make sure that all the kids are learning, and hopefully they will get to a place that they can all pass the test. Also, she mentioned that the statistics show that those kids who can read at 3rd grade level are 5 times more amped to be able to go to college and get into a good career. So she wanted us to let everyone know that. They talked about the target group. The target group was those kids who they felt needed early intervention, and they tried to capture those kids first so they can make sure they're in the classes and make sure that they're getting the interventions that they need in order to help them get up to reading level, 3rd grade reading level. She also talked about getting the parents involved, how they want to make sure parents understood what was going on, the parents to make sure their kids are doing the works that they're supposed to do at home, as well as making sure that those kids are attending class. They don't want the kids to miss, because the more they miss, the more they miss out on learning. She also talked about the iReady program and the RIP program, Reading Improvement and Monitoring Plan, which they have here at Akron Public Schools, and that is dealing with the kids from K through 2 and ELA kids in the framework. Talked about the areas that they're looking for as far as them being assessed and being able to be ready to take the test as well. She also talked about there were retentions, and the retention piece was there were times that parents can request that their kids be retained, but there are some other reasons that kids can be retained, such as being SL students, those who repeated the same class for a second year, and some of the special ed kids who have cognitive delays. Then she went on to talk about the mystery camp, and that is for grades 1 through 5. She talked about their dealing with, and they're coming to class and learning about reading and math instruction, and as well as have those interventions for those kids. And she made a note that we had, there's 242 kids that were signed up, and 221 have, I believe, already, correct me, have already passed the test and already signed up for class this summer. There's 242 kids who need to be signed up that they identified, 221 who are signed up. So there's a few kids who didn't get signed up. And help me if I miss anything else. All right, Ms. Carter, did I miss anything? Okay. Good job. All right. All right. Ms. McKittrick.
And as a gentle reminder, the slide deck for Ms. Carter's presentation is linked under the IP agenda item, and also the College and Career Academy updates, the FRC updates, and the Stay in the Game updates.
Thank you, Instructional Policy and Student Achievement Committee. Next is Equity Committee. Ms. McKittrick.
Okay. We met on June 5th, and I'll start with our Diversity Officer's report, Dr. Chapman, and I passed out some information to you if you weren't at our meeting. These two pieces of paper, and if you look at this first one, you'll notice it looks an awful lot like our Portrait of a Scholar. And so the committee has been working, after 8 months of work, these are what they've produced. The Portrait of a Culturally Responsive Educator / staff member, in other words, any adult in the district, really. And these two documents include mindset and approaches and the characteristics, and a gentle reminder that all of the adults in this district have a role, and Dr. Chapman stressed how critical self-reflection is in order to become the kinds of adults we want to be, to model for our children. The next steps are to get feedback from various groups in the district and to try and roll this out for the 23-24 academic year. And I should tell you that, not that anybody will be surprised, but that APS is leading the way with this work, that nationally many districts have created culturally responsive school districts, but as far as Dr. Chapman knows, APS is the only one that created something specific to the adults in a district. So bravo, as always. And also, the APS diversity team will present at the Reimagining Education Summer Institute, also known as RESI, at Columbia University this summer. And they will also present at Chiefs for Change Equity Officers Network in Boulder, Colorado. Another update is the Hip Hop and Change. We have 33 students enrolled. First day turnout wasn't exactly what we wanted, but there will be some outreach to remind students about the program to help increase that. And finally, the 23-24 Instructional Improvement Day training is being scheduled, and this round will complete the first level for all schools, with next level sessions beginning in spring of 2024. And I think that's everything. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McKittrick, and thank you, Dr. Chapman and team, for all of the work you are doing and pursuing and keeping us ahead of the curve. Thank you so much. And so, moving on, there is no unfinished business. There is no new business. And so, item number 31, there is a need to recess into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G. 1, for the purpose of considering the employment or compensation of a public employee or official of the school district. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. McKittrick, seconded by Mr. Perry. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Mrs. Autry,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Aye.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion carries, and we are adjourned at 6:52. Wow.